Every Magic player dreams of finding the bottom, the right time for the right card, saving as much money as possible while maximizing on the potential upswing of any card they're buying. Let's face it, some Magic cards are tens of thousands of dollars, and you want to get as much value and bang for your buck as you can. It's time to talk about and look at the highs and lows of Magic the Gathering. For any Magic the Gathering player that has always desired and wanted to get their hands on certain Magic cards, and they always feel like they could just get a little bit better of a deal, they would spring for it and buy that card, this video is probably for you. Welcome back everyone, MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on the channel today. To my regular viewers who tune in each and every day, so glad to have you back. My Patreon supporters and YouTube membership members, and of course the new subscribers who come to the channel, hit that subscribe button, give these videos a thumbs up, and of course put comments in the comment section, because this is where conversation happens, right? In the comment sections. There's nothing wrong with desiring something, to want to have something. A lot of Magic cards out there have always seemed unobtainable, impossible to get your hands on. The good years have already gone by, the easy money has been made, and there's just no point in buying them. Except for the players who actually just want to own them. The players who want to invest in them and flip them later. To the collectors who want to build that collection, there are cards out there that they still want to get their hands on. Some players just want more, they're greedy, they want more. I say there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not hurting anybody doing it. If you want to get 1,000 dual lands, if that's your goal, have at it. That is for you to decide. Now, when you're looking though and trying to find the best deal, trying to find and determine the bottom price for a card is next to impossible. What you should be doing as a player, investor, collector, flipper, wherever you fall in the gamut, but there's a card you want to get your hands on, and I'm going to focus on reserve list cards because they are the most expensive cards in the game. When you look at this stuff, you've got time on your side. We have a history that we can look at and predetermine rough pricing of where we think something should be. It does help in determining the value, but no matter where you fall, you could hate this video, love this video, be a collector, be an investor, like the Moxman, hate the Moxman, doesn't matter. What holds true is this game could probably go all the way up. At the same time, it could probably go all the way down. For all the people who say the reserve list shouldn't exist, too late. It's already here. It exists. So trying to say that it's going to make a go and it's just going to disappear, I don't believe that's going to happen. And I've been hedging my bets that it never will in my lifetime. And until I see hard proof, which means Wizards breaks a promise, I will continue. Oh wait, they have broken promises. Price sensitive. Oh yeah, I forgot. But until they break the reserve list and actually reprint the cards, I will keep going on the exact same path I've been taking all this time. And right now, with the turmoil in the market and what's going on out there in the real live world, outside the Matrix, prices have never been better for so many reserve list cards. From a person who wants to get their first Library of Alexandria to a person who hopes to get a Gaea's Cradle. No matter what card draft, your first dual land, like Mini Mox, is almost there. All those cards that people are after, chasing, to finish a deck, to build a collection, just to have more. To flip and make more money down the road. The prices right now are starting to look very attractive to a lot of people. Some cards are already starting to trend sideways. What you should be doing is what I'm going to show you in the video. Look at the highs and lows. Have a goal in mind of how much you think a card is worth, because the card could go to zero, but at the same time it could go a lot higher. As we saw in late 2020 all the way through 2021, things can get a little bit nutty out there. But the history of the card is what matters to predetermine where some of these values have been, where they're going, and where they could go in the future. But either way, at the end of this video, you out there, whoever you are, you've got to decide if you're comfortable with that price going to zero. It's great when it goes up. Awesome, fantastic. But in the end, if it goes to zero, what's the worst case scenario? The game gets Armageddon nuked. Are you okay with it? But these videos will change in time. I can't say this is always going to be the only video somebody does on this. I'm not the be-all, end-all. but I have a lot of experience. I've done this for a long time. I've made a lot of money on a lot of these old cards. Before I did YouTube, I was buying, selling, and trading as a secondary hobby. I did very well. So let's take a look at this. Let me explain my reasoning behind what I do in the past to what I do now going forward in the future. Where I think some of these cards will go and why I do it the way I do. All right, guys, let's get to this. When we're taking a look at Time Spiral as the first card we're going to analyze today from Urza's Saga, we can look back at 2013 and see this card went for around 50 bucks. All right, just for argument's sake, we're going to say 50 bucks. As of today, this card is $118.46 US. These prices are in US today. The height this card had was around $260 US, or around $310 Canadian at the time. And that was, of course, in the massive buyout of 2021. But when did this card start to go up? Who desires it? How playable is this card when you start looking at the breakdown? Time Spiral is a heavy casting cost card. It is 2 blue, 4 other. Remove Time Spiral from the game. Each player shuffles his or her graveyard and hand into his or her library, then draws 7 cards, but you untap 6 lands. So you get all the mana back if you can get this spell to go off. So is there enough players out there to desire this card? Is this card going to continue to go up? Is it going to stay stagnant, or is it going to fall further? Judging on the market right now, the sales volumes, which you can look at eBay sold listings, you can look on TCG Player, you can check other sites out, and hopefully in Facebook groups if you're there, to see which of these cards are moving. And I'll tell you right now, this card's going to fall. It's going to continue to go down. You don't have to seek this card out right now. This card is not at the bottom. It has room to still go down. If I was a flipper investor side of me, I want this card at $70. $70. I don't want it at $120. And I paid about $160 US for my card at the height, but that's what the card was going for, but not in today's market. Now, if you're a flipper investor, is this card going to go back up some point? You're going to have to hedge your bets on that. But if you're a player who wants this card, is that a fair price? Yes. I'd say $100 is a very fair price, but if you're a flipper investor, you want it for 80. You want more wiggle room, right? You want to get it somewhere above the 50 mark, which was where it was back in 2013, but you want to get below the high and somewhere around where it is now in 2023, which is 120. You got to find that middle ground. And you have to be willing to accept that this card can go to nothing, which is why you need to have a bigger margin if you're a flipper investor, and you got to feel comfortable with the price if you're a player. The next card we're talking about is Yawgmoth's Will from Urza's Saga. Back in 2013, this card was $15 US. The current market price is $203.75. Now, it's been as high as $450 US, but the market's really brought this card back down to earth. So when you're looking at this from the financial standpoint, if you're a player looking to find the bottom of this card, is 203 the bottom versus the $15 it was back in 2013? Well, look at the card. It's 1 black, 2 generic, and until end of turn, you may play cards in your graveyard as though they were in your hand. Cards put into your graveyard this turn are removed from the game, but if you're using this card, when you use it, it's probably for game-ending effects from cards already in your graveyard. You'll be casting massive amounts of scary things. This card probably is not going to drop much lower. It may hit sub 200. It may drop a little bit further, but will it go far enough? For me as a player, if I want to buy extra copies, and I already own a playset. I already have a playset of this card. I don't really need more. But if I'm a flipper investor, what price do I want that card at? 50% of the value now. I want it for around 95 to 105 US for me to start buying copies since I don't need any. If I'm willing to take on risk as the flipper investor side, then I'm going to go ahead and I want a big deal. I want to save a lot of money. For the bottom though, if you wanted 1 copy of this card, it's around $180 because it's going to drop a little bit more, but it's going to be slow. Players who have this card now don't have to sell. So if you're a player looking for the bottom, it's around 180. That seems like a pretty good deal. Depending on the condition, of course, that's near mint, but rougher copies can save more money. And if I'm a flipper investor, I want it like 95 to 105. If I'm going to take the bait and sit on this card for years, hoping to turn a profit somewhere else. So if you're a person out there who wants this card, it's not far off the bottom of where I think it could go. Maybe it'll drop further, but this is where I think as a person who's been around the game long enough to see where cards have gone, you know, a lot of these cards are starting to, trend sideways. This card's not dropping like it did before. You can see there it's kind of bottoming out. It doesn't have any more jagged drops, which means the market's kind of trending it sideways. There's people noticing it at that price. And when people notice a card, they're thinking it's a pretty good deal because they're looking where the card was. Do I think it should have been at $450? Probably. But this is the first time it's really gone through a buyout like this over a long and short period of time. The long time, nobody noticed it. That short period, big, massive buyout. Now things have settled. People need some liquidity and sold copies. 180. 180 near mint for a person who just needs a single copy. Flipper investor, I guarantee it's going to be 95 to 105. I know I wouldn't touch it before then because I'm not going to take the risk. Now, the next card I want to talk about is Soldevi Excavations. Anyone who's been on the channel for a while knows this is my favorite card. It's my favorite card to collect. Now, when you look at the card and you see in 2013 it was $1 US. Now you go ahead and you see it reached a high of 40, but then you go and see now it's at $18.84. There's something that we have to look at. First, the card. When Soldevi Excavations comes into play, sacrifice an untapped island or bury Soldevi Excavations. Now, say we sacrifice the island. It can tap for 1 blue and 1 generic to your mana pool. And it doesn't come into play tapped, which is awesome. You can use this land right away. Now, 1 generic and tap the land. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card in the bottom of your library. So it's a form of scry. You get to look at this card. But guess what? Let's talk about that high. The high of $40 was market manipulation done by myself and people on this channel. It's not just knowing how high the card was, it's who was buying it and when. Researching the card and seeing what happened and why. Looking up YouTube videos, looking at sold listings, finding out the timelines of when things happen. Some cards are just market manipulations and actually don't warrant being there at all. Do I think that card is a $100 card? No. It's a fun card. It has some utilitarian in some of my decks. I enjoy collecting it because I love the card as a teenager for looking ahead at stuff as well as tapping for 2 and using it for a time walk. It's just the way it was, okay? Crazy good times for me, but maybe not for everyone. So if you're looking for this card, look at the prices, $1 to 40 to 18. Ignore the 40 after you research it and find out why it was that high. So now you go between 1 and 18. This card should be an $8 card. So if you're buying this card, you're looking around the $8. And guess what? This card can be found on TCG Player for $8 for lightly played. This card's near the bottom. This is basically where the card's going to fall. And that's how I look at cards like this. As much as I love the card and I buy it every month, you have to look at cards to see if they've been manipulated by the market. You can't just assume because it was that high that that's the right price. Sometimes it's a BGS rated 10, a PSA 10 that pushes that card through the roof. You have to look at that stuff. And if you don't know, research it. Take the time. If it looks a little scary and a high price, you're wondering why it's there, look into the card first before you dive in. Know why you want it, what the purpose is, and why the card was that high, if you can find out. If not, check out with your local YouTubers who might know that information and see if we can find it for you. We have more sources sometimes than the average player looking for cards. Now, the last card I want to talk about today and evaluate with you is Gaea's Cradle, Urza's Saga. Now, this is one of those super powerful lands from the Urza's Saga era, just like Tolarian Academy, and the same rule kind of applies. When you're looking at Gaea's Cradle, look at the timeline. Now, even back in 2013, 2014, this card already had some value. It was already worth a couple $100. 2016, 2017, 2018, see that slight uptick, but not nearly as much. Even when Alpha Investments came around, people knew about this card. It was already commanding some value, but 2018, 2019 is when it starts to go up. Then 2020, 2021, and now it's falling down, but it's leveling out. Guess what? Let me share something with you guys. Take a closer look at this card. If you haven't seen it before, take a look. It comes in as a legendary land. Add 1 green to your mana pool for each creature you control. The mana ramp power on this card is phenomenal. It is a powerhouse card. I've used it numerous times now, and I love when I get it into play. But at the same time, I have to be honest with you guys. This card, because it's not banned in things like Commander, it will continue to go higher. It's trending sideways right now. When you look at the history of this card, it already was kind of pricey. It's been that way for a very long time. So honestly, it's probably underpriced for where it is on the market right now. And that means it's to everyone's advantage who is looking for this card. When you look at the card again and see 2013, then to 20, you see that giant jump, it will trend sideways, maybe dip a bit more. But if this card ever hits $700 again, I would be surprised. It would throw me off at $700 for a near mint copy. I'm not talking about moderately played for this kind of situation we're talking about today. I'm talking if they were near mint. Because there's all kinds of different factors when you're talking moderately played, heavily played copies, damaged copies. That really is, buyer beware, know why you want the card, don't expect certain things. But that card in near mint, if it ever goes below 700, I'd be very surprised. If you get it for that price, I consider that a fair deal. If you're a flipper investor, you'd actually want to get this card now at around 450 if you're a buyer trying to get it. That's the way I would look at a card, because you're going to take a lot of risk on it. $450 US, and I may have to sit on it for another 10, 15 years to realize the profits of getting back up to $2,000. It's a lot of risk for somebody to accept, depending on where you are in the world and why you're going to flip and invest in a card like that. But the evaluation on it, the sales volumes are always consistent. They're constant. There's no major spikes. There's no major drops. It's a good card that people want. There's desirability from many players to own a copy like this. Imagine if Tolarian Academy ever became unbanned. It would jump higher than this card. It would be higher than Gaea's Cradle. And that's one of those things that keeps cards like Tolarian down and suppressed. But that's why some people still buy it, because there's always a chance that cards can become unbanned. Look at the history of when it was banned and why, the reasons, and look and evaluate the market as the situations change throughout the years. There can be more ways of land destruction. There can be more things that make the card not as powerful based on new cards coming in that could allow cards to become unbanned. So that's why some people still buy cards like Tolarian, hoping it'll go up. But why a card like Gaea's Cradle will always hold value? Because it's not banned in a very popular format like Commander, the most popular format played today. So the value on that card is always going to be higher. Anyway, guys, I wanted to do a lot more. We're here at the end of the video. Most people aren't even here at this point. I wanted to do a lot more, but these take time to go through and explain what my reasoning is, and I had to cut the video short. If this video gets enough views, I will do more in a series like this to give you guys more input on how I look at these things, or you can just send me an email if you ever want a little help deciding on some things, or some non-solicited, non-financial, non-personal advice. I'll be happy to help you guys out. Because it's an interesting time to see prices like this fall. Because there's a lot of cards I've actually been buying that were at the $50, $60 range. They're now at the $10 range. And that's why I'm buying them. Because it's just so low, I really can't see a downside. That risk reward has got to be determined by everybody and why you're buying it. I'm buying some for the channel. I'm buying some for me. Everyone's got the reasons for buying. And that's what people always forget. Some people just want more. Some people just want one. Thanks for being here on the channel, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you made it this far in the channel, let's put down meatballs, because that's what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Meatballs in the comment section. Thanks for being here, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow for another video. And of course, a big thank you and special shout out to all the fantastic patrons on this channel that help support the Moxman and get this stuff done. Without them, this content's not possible. Thanks again for being a supporter. Here you are at the end, and I'm throwing one in, okay? And that is Pendrell Mists from Weatherlight. A lot of you guys know I like the card, and that's because it's a direct comparison to Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. I look at the card a little closer, and you say, okay, it's an enchantment. It's 1 blue, so it can be splashed into a lot of decks that are anti-creature. Each creature gains, during your upkeep, pay 1 or bury this creature. So anyone who's got massive army of tokens can never afford to keep the tokens around. A card like this, to me, at $40, I can see the card at that level. Me personally, I look at it and say, okay, it was $1, but that's because people didn't know about it. 2016, 2017, it got noticed because of what happened with Alpha Investments entering YouTube. So then things went up. And then 2018, it spiked above 20, and that was before the buyouts. Then it goes down, settles around the $15, $20 mark, shoots down again, everyone ignores it, hits $10, goes up. It has a fairly good history going back to 2018 where it's been above the $10 mark. On TCG Player, you can find this thing for like $8 near mint. So when I look at a card like this, if you're a flipper investor, you want it for like $4. if you're going to be buying a collection of them. You want it for like $4. Maybe even less, depending on the condition. If you're a person who wants to own this card, anything from $8 to $12 seems pretty fair to me. I bought a couple this week off a TCG player using my own affiliate link. I looked and said it was a good deal. It gets me some extra stuff for the channel, and I'm trying to build an anti-creature deck commander thing I'm putting together, so it has a lot of enchantments in it, and I figured why not get extra copies now? Well, the prices are really low. That's how I'm looking at it, and buying 10 copies for $100 seems like a very good deal in the long run if the card shoots up again, or if creatures become so powerful that people look at ways of being anti-creature. And when I'm looking at Wizards of the Coast, a lot of the creatures they've been giving us lately are very powerful creatures. So I want to look at ways like Peacekeeper and Magnus of the Disc, all these little weird cards, and ones that are on the reserve list that are cheap right now. Like Peacekeeper, I think is like $18, guys. There's good prices out there. And depending on the condition, I mean, at those condition prices, I'd want near mint because it gives you a bigger upswing later on, you know? So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that that one's a pretty good buy. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. And you're the ones who make it to the end. So if you're in this far away in the video, this deep end of the video, you can put Pendrell Mists, because then I know. And that shows respect. I respect you guys for making it that far. You guys are awesome. Pendrell Mists.